Tonight we descend, far below the world of the living, beyond the reach of sunlight, and beneath the weight of time itself, we go into a realm untouched by change, a place where no wind blows, no voices rise, and no footsteps ever truly leave. It is not a place of chaos, nor of endless suffering, but of quiet, of stillness, of permanence. For here all things come to rest, not ruled by fear, but by a God who does not shout, who does not command, but simply remains. Tonight, this is the story of Hades, the unseen ruler, the keeper of souls, and the silent king of the underworld. If this kind of storytelling brings you inner peace, feel free to like the video and subscribe, but only if it truly brings you peace. And let me know in the comments where in the world are you listening from, and what time it is for you right now. It's always strangely comforting to know who else is out there closing their eyes to the same story. So settle in, let the world grow quiet, and let's dream together for a while. There was a time when the world did not know how to end. The sky stretched without memory, and the earth held everything it was given. Nothing was taken back, nothing was returned. The rivers flowed without carrying anything away. The wind passed over fields that never emptied, never quieted, never forgot. Life, in those distant beginnings, did not yet understand its own boundary. It moved forward without resistance, like a story that had not discovered its final line. Creatures were born into a world that made no room for absence. They walked upon soil that had never known loss, beneath a sky that had never dimmed in grief. And so, everything remained. The weight of existence gathered slowly, imperceptibly at first, like dust settling in a forgotten chamber. The ground grew heavy with footsteps that never ceased. The air thickened with breath that was never released. Even the light, endless and unwavering, began to press against itself, as if searching for space that did not exist. Time moved, but it did not divide. It carried moments forward, yet never allowed them to fall away. The past did not recede. It lingered, layer upon layer, until memory itself became indistinguishable from the present. Nothing could be left behind, because there was nowhere for it to go. In such a world, there was no silence, not the silence of rest, nor the silence of absence, but a deeper kind that had yet to be born, a silence shaped not by stillness, but by the completion of a thing. The kind that follows an ending. That silence did not yet exist, and so the world spoke endlessly, without pause, without conclusion. The ancient forces who shaped the cosmos, unseen, unspoken, and older than any form they would later take, observed this quiet imbalance, not with urgency, nor with alarm, but with a distant awareness that something was unfinished. Creation, for all its vastness, had been left open. A beginning without an ending is not a circle. It is a line that stretches beyond its own meaning. And so, the world waited, not consciously, not with intent, but in the way that all things wait when they approach an inevitability they cannot yet perceive. Beneath the surface of existence, something was forming, not a presence, not yet a place, but an absence that would one day take shape. It was not born from destruction, nor from anger, nor from any desire to undo what had been made. It came instead from necessity, from the quiet understanding that even the most eternal of things requires a boundary if it is to remain whole. Before death, there was no departure. There was no crossing, no threshold, no moment in which a thing could become complete. Without that moment, life itself could not be measured. It could not be understood, not fully, not in the way that gives shape to meaning. And so, the earliest world carried within it a hidden imbalance, a fullness without release. The forests grew, but they never thinned. The oceans swelled, but they never receded. Creatures moved through their endless days, unaware that something was missing, because they had never known its presence. Yet even in that unbroken continuity, there were signs, faint, almost imperceptible disturbances in the rhythm of existence. A hesitation in the wind, a stillness that lingered just a moment longer than it should. A shadow that did not come from any object, but from the quiet suggestion of something that had yet to be named. These were not endings. They were the first suggestions that an ending could exist. In time, though time itself had not yet learnt to close, these suggestions would gather. They would deepen. They would become something more defined, more inevitable. But in this earlier stage, they remained only as whispers beneath the surface of the world. The earth continued to hold everything. The sky continued to stretch without limit, and life, unaware of its own incompleteness, continued forward, endless, uninterrupted, and quietly burdened by the absence of its own conclusion. Somewhere beyond sight and beyond form, the idea of an ending began to take shape. Not as a force of destruction, but as a quiet promise. A promise that one day everything would find its place, and in that place there would finally be silence. It did not arrive with sound. There was no breaking of sky, no trembling of earth, no voice to mark the moment. The first ending entered the world the way a shadow lengthens at dusk, slowly, almost unnoticed, until it is already there. For an age, existence had moved without interruption. Every motion continued into another, every breath followed by the next, without question, without pause. But somewhere within that endless continuation, a single thread faltered. It was small, so small that the world did not at first understand what had changed. A creature, unnamed, unremembered, slowed. Its movement, once seamless, became uncertain. Not from pain, nor from fear, but from a quiet resistance that had never existed before. The air around it seemed to settle differently. The ground beneath it no longer responded with the same silent agreement. And then, without ceremony, it stopped. The moment did not echo. There was no immediate absence, no visible fracture in the fabric of the world. The body remained, as all things had always remained. Yet something had withdrawn. Something that did not linger. For the first time, existence had released what it held. The world did not understand this act. It had no language for it, no memory to compare it against. But the change was undeniable. Where there had once been continuous presence, there was now a quiet separation, subtle but complete. The body stayed, but whatever had animated it did not. It was not taken. It was not destroyed. It simply was no longer there. And in that absence, something entirely new entered the world. Stillness. Not the stillness of rest, nor the gentle pause between movements, but a deeper stillness, one that did not anticipate continuation, a stillness that did not lead to anything else. The world felt it, though it could not name it. The air around the fallen form seemed heavier, as though it now carried a meaning it had never held before. The earth beneath it did not reject the weight, but accepted it in a different way, as if it were no longer supporting life, but keeping something in place. Time, which had once moved without division, hesitated. It lingered at that moment, uncertain of how to proceed. For the first time, there was a before and an after. The distinction was fragile, barely formed, but it existed, and once it existed, it could not be undone. Elsewhere, the same quiet unravelling began to repeat, not quickly, not all at once, but gradually, like a pattern emerging from beneath the surface of water. One life would falter, then another. each ending as quiet as the first, each departure leaving behind the same stillness, the same unanswered absence. The world began to change, not in its form, but in its weight. Where once everything had accumulated endlessly, there were now spaces, not empty, but different. Spaces shaped by what was no longer present. The ground began to hold more than footsteps. It began to hold memory. And memory, unlike life, did not move. It settled. With each ending, the unseen absence grew more defined. It was no longer a suggestion, no longer a whisper beneath existence. It was becoming something with shape, with direction, something that drew things away from the surface of the world, though no path yet existed to guide them. This was not chaos. There was no struggle, no resistance against the change. The endings came as naturally as the beginnings had once come. Quietly, inevitably, without intention. But with each one, the balance of the world shifted. Life was no longer endless. It had acquired a boundary, and within that boundary, meaning began to take form, not through growth, but through limitation. A thing could now be measured, not by how long it endured, but by the fact that it would not endure forever. The ancient forces that watched the unfolding of existence observed this change with the same distant stillness as before. Yet something within the structure of the cosmos had now answered a question that had never been spoken. Creation was no longer open. It had found its edge. Still, there was no place for what had departed. The absence lingered without direction, without destination. It did not return to the earth, nor rise to the sky. It simply existed outside the continuity of life, a quiet remainder of something that had been completed. This, too, would not remain unresolved. For just as the first ending had given birth to stillness, it had also created a need, not of desire, but of order. The world, now divided between what remained and what had departed, required a place where these endings could belong, a place not of life, but of completion, a place where silence would not be an absence, but a state of being. That place had not yet been formed, but its necessity had already taken root. And in the quiet wake of the first ending, something vast and patient began to gather beneath the surface of existence. Not rising, not yet, only waiting. As all things do when they are inevitable, the world had learned how to end. But it had not yet learned where endings belonged. What departed from life did not vanish. It did not dissolve into the air or return to the soil in any complete sense. It lingered in a state that was neither presence nor absence, a quiet remainder that the surface of the world could no longer contain. At first, this remainder had no direction. It drifted without movement, existed without place. But as endings became more frequent, as the rhythm of life began to include its own quiet conclusions, the weight of these unseen remnants began to gather. Not above, not around, but below. There is, in all things, a natural descent, a tendency not imposed, but inherent. What is released seeks depth. What is completed seeks stillness. And so, without command or design, the remnants of endings began to settle beneath the living world. The earth, which had once only supported, now began to receive. Not in the way it received roots or stone, but in a deeper, more permanent sense. It opened, not visibly, not with fracture or collapse, but with a quiet yielding that made space where there had been none. This was not a tearing of the world. It was a continuation of its balance. As life above learned to release, the earth below learned to hold. And in that holding, something vast began to take shape. It did not form all at once. There was no single moment of creation, no clear boundary where it began. It emerged slowly, like a shadow deepening beneath an object, growing more defined as the light above remained unchanged. A realm without sky, a depth without horizon, a place where movement did not echo and time did not press forward in the same way it did above. This was not yet the underworld as it would later be known. It had no structure, no rivers, no gates. It was only a gathering, a quiet expanse where the remnants of life came to rest. But even in this early state, it possessed a quality the surface did not. Finality. Nothing here sought to become something else. Nothing here strained toward growth or change. The restless continuity of life had no presence in this depth. Instead, there was a stillness that did not anticipate interruption. The first true silence. Not the silence that had been absent before death existed, but a different kind, one shaped by completion. A silence that followed rather than preceded. As more endings occurred, this realm deepened. Not downward, in any measurable sense, but inward. It became more defined, more certain of its nature. The separation between what lived and what had ended grew clearer, though no visible line marked the boundary. Above, life continued. It adapted, slowly, to its new limitation. Creatures were born and lived within spans that could now be measured, though they did not yet understand how or why. The world retained its form, its light, its motion, but beneath it, something entirely different had begun to exist, a place untouched by the urgency of becoming, a place where everything had already arrived. There was no ruler there, no presence to guide or command. The realm did not require governance, for nothing within it resisted its nature. It simply was, vast, patient, and unmoving, yet even in its stillness, it exerted a quiet pull. Not a force that could be felt by the living, but a certainty that shaped the structure of existence itself. Every life above, whether it knew it or not, now had a direction beyond its final breath. Not an upward ascent, but a descent into completion. This did not bring fear. Fear requires anticipation, and the living had not yet learned to anticipate their own ending. They existed as they always had, within the present moment, unaware that beneath them lay a place that would one day receive them. The underworld, though it had not yet been named, remained unseen, unspoken. But it was no longer formless. It had become a destination. And with that, the structure of the cosmos changed once more. Life above was no longer a closed system. It did not merely begin and persist. It now led somewhere. And that somewhere, though silent, though distant, was absolute. In time, this realm would take on shape. It would gain rivers, boundaries, and guardians. It would be known, described, feared, and misunderstood. But in its beginning, it was none of those things. It was only what it needed to be. A place for endings to rest. A place where nothing was unfinished. A place where silence was not empty, but complete. And in that completeness, something else began to stir, not within the realm itself, but in the order of the cosmos that surrounded it. For a place of such permanence could not remain without a presence to belong to it. The underworld had been born. But it was not yet claimed. Beneath the living world, the silence settled. It did not spread like a sound fading into distance. It did not move outward or grow in any visible way. It simply deepened, becoming more complete with each passing ending, as though it were remembering something it had always known. Above, the world continued in its quiet rhythm. Light moved across the sky. Wind passed through forests that still grew, still changed, still reached toward something beyond themselves. Life carried on, now marked by beginnings and endings, though neither was fully understood. But below, there was no reaching, no becoming, only being. The realm that had formed from the gathering of endings began to take on a presence more distinct than before. not a form that could be seen, but a condition that could be felt, a stillness that did not belong to the surface of the world. It was not empty. The silence was not the absence of sound, but the absence of interruption. Nothing here broke the continuity of what already was. There were no sudden movements, no shifts in direction, no emergence of something new. Everything had already arrived. The remnants of life, now settled within this depth, did not wander. They did not search or resist. They existed in a state beyond motion, beyond intention, not asleep and not awake, but held in a quiet permanence that required nothing further. Time, which above moved in a measured flow, did not behave the same way here. It did not stop, for even stillness requires duration, but it no longer divided itself into moments that could be counted. There was no before and after within this silence, only a continuous present that did not pass, but remained. This was the nature of the place. It did not forget, and yet it did not recall. It did not change, and yet it was not stagnant. It existed in a balance that did not depend on movement to sustain it. And with each new arrival from the world above, this balance did not shift. It absorbed, without strain, without expansion, as though it had always contained what it now held. There were no boundaries yet, no edges to mark where the realm began or ended. It was defined not by walls or limits, but by its condition, a separation so complete that nothing of the surface world could follow except what had already ended. Light did not reach here, but neither did darkness fall, for darkness implies contrast, and there was nothing here to oppose. The realm existed in a dim constancy, a muted existence beyond the language of brightness or shadow. And in that constancy, something quiet began to emerge. Not a figure, not yet, but a presence of belonging. The underworld, though still without ruler or voice, had begun to feel less like a gathering and more like a domain, not because it had been claimed, but because its nature had become certain. Every realm in time finds its reflection in a being. The sky would one day have its sovereign, the sea would find its keeper. And this depth, this endless unmoving silence, would not remain without one who matched its nature. For now, it waited, not with anticipation, but with inevitability. Above, life continued to turn upon itself. Creatures lived and ended, their departures now understood not as disappearances, but as transitions into something unseen. The surface world had begun, in its own quiet way, to accept the rhythm that had been introduced. Endings were no longer anomalies, they were part of the order, and beneath that order, the silence remained unchanged. It did not welcome, it did not reject, it did not judge, it simply received. There was a weight to it now, not a burden, but a presence that could not be ignored by the structure of the cosmos itself. The balance between life and its completion had begun to stabilize, though no mind had shaped it and no voice had declared it so. The underworld existed as a truth, not as a decision. And yet, within that truth, there was an absence, not of form nor of purpose, but of identity. The realm was complete in its function, but incomplete in its reflection. It held endings, but it did not yet embody them. That too would come, for the silence beneath the earth was not only a place, it was a beginning of another kind, a beginning that did not rise, but descended, a beginning that would take shape not in light, but in stillness. And when that shape emerged, it would not disturb the silence, it would become it. The depth remained as it was, unmoving, unchanging, complete, and within it, the quiet certainty of what had yet to arrive grew ever more defined. The underworld had found its silence. Now, it would one day find its God. The world, once unbroken, had begun to understand separation, not as a fracture, not as a loss of unity, but as a quiet arrangement, a way for all things to exist without pressing endlessly against one another. The sky no longer reached downward without limit. The earth no longer held everything without release. And beneath it all, the silent depth remained, steady and unmoving. Three conditions had emerged. Above, the open expanse, vast, uncontained, stretching without resistance. A place of light, of distance, of unfolding motion. Between, the living world, where form took shape, where things began and changed, where time carried each moment forward with a measured persistence. And below, the underworld, not in opposition, but in completion. A realm where nothing continued, because everything had already reached its end. These were not yet named. They did not require names. They existed as truths within the structure of the cosmos, as inevitable as the passage from breath to stillness. But even without names, their distinctions had become clear. The sky did not belong to the earth did not belong to the depths, and the depths did not return what they received. This separation did not come with conflict. There was no struggle between realms, no resistance at their boundaries. Each existed according to its nature, without intrusion from the others. The sky expanded, the earth transformed, the underworld remained, and yet within this balance there was a quiet incompleteness. For though the realms had formed, they had not yet been claimed. They were places without presence, conditions without embodiment. The sky stretched endlessly, but no being reflected its vastness. The seas, though still gathering in their own slow formation, had no voice to echo their depths. And beneath it all, the underworld held its silence without a figure to carry it. In time, this would change. Not suddenly, and not through force, but through a continuation of the same quiet necessity that had shaped everything before it. For every realm, once formed, seeks its reflection, not out of desire, but out of balance. It is not enough for a place to exist, it must also be known, and to be known, it must take form. The ancient order of existence, which had guided the unfolding of beginnings and endings, now moved toward a deeper arrangement. The cosmos, having divided itself into realms, would soon divide its dominion as well. But this division would not resemble the separations that had come before. It would not be a matter of distance or of condition. It would be a matter of belonging. For the first time, the question would arise, not spoken, but inherent. Who would stand within each realm? Who would not merely exist within it, but embody it? The sky, in its vast openness, would require a presence that could stretch without limit, a being who did not descend, but remained above, untouched by the weight of the world below. The seas, in their depth and motion, would require a presence that could hold both calm and unrest, both surface and abyss. And the underworld. The underworld would require something different. Not a force of change, not a bearer of light, but a presence that could remain where nothing moved. A presence that would not resist stillness, but become indistinguishable from it. This had not yet come to pass, but the shape of it was already certain. Above, the sky continued to widen, its distance untouched. The living world continued its quiet cycle, now bound by beginnings and endings alike. And below, the silent realm remained unchanged, receiving without effort, holding without strain. The three realms existed in balance, not equal, not identical, but aligned, each fulfilling what the others could not, each complete in its own nature. And yet, the absence of presence within them lingered, not as a flaw, but as an unfinished thought. The cosmos had arranged its spaces. Now, it would arrange its rulers. This would not come through creation alone, but through inheritance, through division, through a quiet claiming of what had already been made. The realms were ready. The sky waited in its endless distance. The sea gathered in its forming depths. And the underworld, unchanged and unyielding, remained below, silent, patient, and absolute. It did not call for a ruler. It did not need one. And yet one would come, not to change it, not to command it, but to belong to it. The division of the realms had begun. Soon they would no longer stand without names, and the silence beneath the earth would no longer remain without a god. Before he was a god of the underworld, he was simply one among others. Born into a world already divided, he did not shape the realms, he inherited their existence. The sky had found its height, the sea had begun to gather its depth, and far below, the silent domain waited, unchanged and unclaimed. He was not the first to look upon it, but he was the first for whom it did not seem distant. Among those who had come to rule the cosmos, there were distinctions already forming, subtle but certain. Some turned naturally toward the open sky, drawn to its vastness, its movement, its light. Others found resonance in the shifting waters, in their quiet unrest and hidden force. But for him, there was no such pull upward, no desire for height, no need for motion. There was instead a quiet alignment with what lay beneath. Not curiosity, not ambition, something quieter than both. Recognition. The underworld did not call to him, it did not reach, but in its stillness it reflected something already present within him. A steadiness that did not seek change, a permanence that did not resist time, a silence that did not require voice. When the moment of division came, when the realms would no longer exist without those who embodied them, it did not arrive as a contest, nor as a declaration of power. It unfolded with the same inevitability that had shaped the world from the beginning. The sky would be held by one who matched its expanse, the sea by one who mirrored its depth, and the underworld would be given to the one who did not turn away from it. There was no reluctance, no hesitation, only a quiet acceptance. He did not ascend to his realm, he descended. The movement was not marked by light or shadow, not by triumph or loss. It was a transition without spectacle, a passage from one state of being into another, as natural as the first ending that had once entered the world. Above, the sky remained untouched. The earth continued its measured turning. But beneath, something changed. For the first time, the underworld was not only a place, it had a presence. He did not shape it. He did not alter its silence, nor did he impose order upon it. The realm required none of these things. It was already complete, already defined in its stillness, and so he became part of it, not as a ruler in the sense the living would later understand, but as something closer to a reflection. The stillness of the realm found its counterpart in him, and in that correspondence a new kind of balance emerged. He did not speak, for there was nothing to announce. He did not command, for nothing resisted. He simply remained. And in his remaining, the underworld became more certain of itself. The presence of a god did not disturb the silence. It deepened it. For he carried no movement into the realm that did not already belong there. He did not bring light where there was none, nor did he introduce darkness as contrast. He existed within the same quiet condition as all that had come before him. The souls that had gathered, though not yet fully defined in their nature, now had something they had not possessed before. A centre. Not a guide, not a judge, but a presence that made the realm whole. Above, the division of the cosmos had been completed. The sky, the sea, and the underworld were no longer only places. They were domains. And within each, a god remained. But while the sky would echo with thunder, and the sea would shift with restless motion, the underworld would remain as it had always been. Still, unchanging, final, and its god would not leave it. Not because he was bound, nor because he was exiled, but because there was nowhere else that reflected him as completely. He had not been placed there by force. He had not been confined. He had descended because it was the only place that required nothing from him beyond what he already was. In time, he would be given a name that the living would speak with distance, with uncertainty, sometimes with fear. But in the beginning, he was simply the one who remained below, the one who did not ascend, the one who did not return. The underworld had found its god, and the god had found the only place where nothing needed to change. The descent was complete, and with it, the silence beneath the earth was no longer without presence. It had become something more enduring than a place. It had become a domain, and within it he remained, not as a visitor, but as its final, unmoving truth. The realm was complete, and yet it was empty, not in the sense of absence, for it held within it all that had ever ended. The silent remnants of lives, gathered over time, rested within its depth. But they did not fill it. They did not occupy it in the way the living world was occupied, with motion, with presence, with the constant assertion of being. Here, nothing asserted itself. Nothing sought to be seen, to be known, or to be remembered. And so, despite all it contained, the underworld remained vast and unoccupied in a way that no other realm could understand. Its god stood within it, if standing could describe a state that did not change. He did not walk its expanse, for there was nowhere to go. Distance existed, but it did not separate. Every part of the realm shared the same stillness, the same unbroken condition. Movement would not reveal anything new, and so he remained, not at a centre, not at an edge, but simply within. The presence he brought did not diminish the emptiness, it clarified it, for the emptiness was not a lack of substance, but a lack of need. Nothing here required interaction, nothing required acknowledgement. The souls that had settled into this depth did not seek him, nor did they turn away. They simply were, as he was. Above, the world had begun to change in ways the underworld did not reflect. Life had grown more complex, more varied. Creatures moved with intention, with awareness of their surroundings, though not yet of their endings. The sky shifted with light and shadow. The sea rose and fell in slow, unending motion. But below, none of this reached. The underworld remained untouched by variation. Each arrival from the world above entered the same stillness, took on the same quiet permanence. There were no distinctions here, not yet. No divisions between one soul and another, no recognition of what had been or what had differed. All were equal in their completion. And in that equality, the realm held a kind of emptiness that could not be filled. For difference creates presence, and here, difference had no meaning. The god of this realm did not impose it. He did not assign place or shape or identity to what had arrived. He did not question what had been, nor did he preserve it in any active way. The underworld was not a mirror of life. It was its conclusion. And conclusions do not continue the story. They end it. There was a weight to this stillness. Not oppressive, not heavy in the way of burden, but absolute. It did not allow for variation, not because it resisted it, but because nothing within it required it. The kingdom, if it could be called that, had no movement, no hierarchy, no voice. It had no need of them. Yet in its completeness, something quiet remained unresolved. Not within the realm itself, but in its relation to what lay above. For the world of the living was not empty. It was filled with distinction, with change, with the subtle unfolding of countless differences. And as those differences ended, they all came to the same place, where they were no longer distinct. This did not disturb the underworld, but it began to shape it, not immediately, and not in a way that could be seen, but in the quiet accumulation of what had once been varied. Though the realm did not yet reflect those differences, it began to carry the weight of them. Memory, though unspoken, began to settle into its depths, not as thought, not as recollection, but as a quiet imprint of what had existed before completion. The God who remained there did not act upon this change, but he did not ignore it. He existed with it, as he existed with everything else, without resistance, without intervention. And in that stillness, the emptiness of the realm began to take on a different meaning. It was no longer simply the absence of movement. It was the presence of everything that no longer moved. The kingdom was not empty because it lacked. It was empty because nothing within it needed to become anything else. And yet, this would not remain its final state. For even in a realm defined by completion, there are structures that must form, not to change its nature, but to give shape to what it already holds. The underworld had gathered its silence. It had found its God. Now, slowly, inevitably, it would begin to understand what it contained. The emptiness would not disappear, but it would deepen, and within that depth, distinctions, quiet, unspoken, but real, would begin to emerge. The kingdom remained as it was, vast, still, unoccupied in the way only something complete can be, and its God remained within it, unchanged, as the silent weight of all that had ended continued to gather around him. The emptiness endured, but it would not remain without form forever. There had been endings before, countless, quiet, and without distinction. They had entered the underworld as all things entered it, without resistance, without direction, without identity that could remain. Each life, once complete, had become part of the same stillness, indistinguishable from the silence that held it. But among these arrivals, there came one that did not settle in the same way, not with movement, not with defiance, but with a faint persistence. It did not resist the stillness of the realm, nor did it attempt to return to what had been. It entered as all others had entered. It became quiet, as all others had become quiet. And yet, something remained. A trace. Not of form, not of voice, but of distinction. It was the smallest difference, almost imperceptible, as if the silence itself had shifted by a fraction too small to measure. But within the unbroken sameness of the underworld, even such a difference could not go unnoticed. The God of the realm did not move toward it. He did not need to. Distance did not separate anything here. What existed within the underworld existed equally everywhere within it, and so, without turning, without stepping, he became aware of it. Not as a disruption, but as a presence that was not entirely dissolved. The first soul, not the first to arrive, but the first to remain in any discernible way. It did not remember in the way the living remember. There were no thoughts, no images of what had been. The world above had already closed behind it, but something of its nature had not fully yielded. A quiet imprint of self. It did not speak, it did not move, and yet it was not the same as all that surrounded it. The underworld did not reject this difference, it did not change to accommodate it, it simply allowed it to exist. And in that allowance, something new began to take shape, not in the realm, but within the meaning of what it held. Until now, all that had entered this depth had become part of its silence completely. The distinction between one life and another had ended entirely upon arrival. But this suggested that something could remain, not fully, not as it had been, but not entirely lost. The god who presided over this place did not question it. He did not seek to understand why this soul differed from the others. The underworld was not a place of inquiry. It did not ask, it did not answer, it simply was, and so he allowed it. The soul remained, not apart from the silence, but within it, distinct in a way that did not break the stillness, but altered its depth. Where once the realm had held only completion, it now held the faintest suggestion of continuity. Not a continuation of life, but a continuation of identity. This change did not spread quickly. The next arrivals entered as all before them had entered, dissolving into the quiet, becoming indistinguishable from the whole. The underworld did not shift its nature in response to a single difference. But the difference had been made, and once made, it could not be undone. The first soul remained, unmoving, unchanging, yet no longer entirely without distinction. It did not disturb the emptiness of the realm, but it gave that emptiness a new dimension, one in which what had ended did not vanish completely, but left behind something that could still, in the quietest sense, be itself. The god of the underworld remained as he always had, still, present, unaltered, and yet the realm around him had begun to carry a different weight, not heavier, but deeper, for within its silence there now existed the possibility that endings did not erase entirely. They completed, and in that completion something might remain. The first soul did not move, it did not grow, it did not return. But it endured, and in its quiet endurance, the underworld, though unchanged in its nature, had taken its first step toward becoming something more than a place of rest. It had become a place of memory, not spoken, not held, but present. The difference was slight, almost nothing, and yet in a realm where nothing changed, even the smallest difference was enough to shape what would come after. The silence remained, but it was no longer entirely empty. It held, within it, the faint outline of something that had once been alive, and had not entirely disappeared. The first soul endured, and the underworld, though still complete, was no longer without distinction. The boundary had long existed. But it had not yet taken form. From the moment the first ending entered the world, there had been a separation, a quiet division between what remained and what had departed. The underworld lay beneath, certain and complete, while the living world continued above, marked now by beginnings and conclusions alike. Yet between these two states there was no passage, no threshold that could be approached, no crossing that could be understood. The departed did not travel, they did not move from one place to another in any way the living would recognise. They simply were no longer above. And yet, as the number of endings grew, as the quiet rhythm of life and completion settled into its place, the absence of a passage began to take on weight, not as a problem, but as something unfinished. For even in a world shaped by inevitability, transitions seek form. What changes state does not remain without a moment that defines the change, and so, slowly, without intention or decree, the boundary between life and death began to gather itself into something more tangible. It did not appear suddenly. It did not carve through the earth or divide the sky. It emerged in the same way the underworld itself had emerged, as a deepening of what had always been present. A line, not drawn, but felt. A threshold, not built, but realised. And within that threshold, something began to flow. At first it was only a suggestion, a movement where no movement had existed before, a quiet current, carrying nothing visible, yet marking a direction that could not be ignored. It did not rush, it did not sound, it moved with the same stillness that defined all things beneath the earth, a flow so calm it seemed unmoving, yet constant in its passage. The river. It had no name. Names belong to the living, to those who distinguish and define. Here there was only function, only presence. It marked the boundary, not by dividing, but by guiding. For the first time, what departed from life did not simply become absent from the world above. It approached something, a quiet edge, where the state of being alive could no longer continue. And beyond that edge, the underworld waited. The souls did not choose to cross. Choice requires awareness of alternatives, and here there were none. The current did not compel, but neither could it be resisted. It was not a force imposed from outside, but a continuation of the same inevitability that had always governed endings. To arrive at the boundary was to move beyond it. The river did not change those who approached it. It did not strip them, nor transform them, nor erase what remained of their quiet distinction. It simply carried them from one state into another, without interruption, without hesitation. A passage without return. The god of the underworld did not stand at its edge. He did not watch the crossings, nor did he guide them. The river required no witness. It existed as part of the same silent order that shaped the realm itself. And yet, he was aware of it. Not as a new creation, but as a completion of what had always been incomplete. The boundary now had form. The transition now had direction. What had once been an undefined separation was now a quiet journey, not through distance, but through state. The first soul, which had remained distinct within the silence, did not return to this boundary. It had already crossed before the crossing existed. It remained where it had settled, unchanged. But those who followed would not enter the underworld without passing through this quiet current. The realm below did not change because of it. Its stillness remained intact, its silence unbroken. The river did not disturb the underworld. It belonged to the threshold, not to the depth. And yet it gave shape to arrival. What had once simply appeared within the silence now approached it, crossed into it, and became part of it. A distinction, subtle but undeniable. The world above remained unaware. Life continued in its measured rhythm, untouched by the unseen passage that awaited all things. The sky moved, the earth shifted, the sea gathered and withdrew, but beneath it all, the boundary had taken form. A river that did not rush, a current that did not change, a crossing that did not need to be understood to be inevitable. The underworld remained as it always had, still, complete, unmoving. But now it was no longer reached without passage. The silence had found its edge, and at that edge the river flowed, endlessly, quietly, carrying all things from what they had been to what they would no longer become. The river flowed without witness. It required no guidance, no voice to direct its passage. Those who reached its edge crossed as naturally as they had once lived, carried by a current that did not need to be seen to be followed. And yet, in time, something appeared upon its surface, not as an interruption, not as a necessity, but as a presence that gave form to what had already been inevitable. A figure. It did not arrive from above, nor rise from below. Like the river itself, it seemed to have always belonged to the threshold, emerging not from creation, but from recognition. The ferryman. He did not announce himself. He did not call out to those who approached, nor did he hasten their crossing. He remained upon the quiet current, unmoving except for the slow, deliberate motion required to guide what already moved toward its end. His vessel did not disturb the water. It did not cut through it, nor leave a trace behind. It existed as the river existed, part of its stillness, part of its purpose. Those who arrived did not question him. They did not hesitate at the sight of him, nor did they seek to understand who or what he was. for there was nothing to question. The crossing had already begun before they reached the edge. He did not choose who would enter. He did not deny. He did not judge. He simply received. Each soul, carrying with it the faint trace of what it had been, stepped into the vessel not by decision, but by inevitability. And once there, the crossing was completed without sound, without resistance. The river carried them. He accompanied them, but neither altered the other. The ferryman was not master of the passage, nor was he separate from it. He was its expression, the quiet embodiment of transition, given form not to control, but to make visible what could not otherwise be seen. The god of the underworld did not summon him. There had been no command, no decree that called him into being, and yet his presence aligned with the order of the realm below, as naturally as the river aligned with the boundary it marked. Hades remained within his domain, unchanged, unmoving, but the crossing above had found its shape. Where once there had been only a silent current, there was now a figure who stood within it, not to alter its course, but to belong to it. The souls did not speak to him. They did not plead, nor did they resist. Whatever remained of their distinction did not extend to the crossing itself. It was a moment beyond memory, beyond identity, a quiet passage into what could not be reversed. And he, in his stillness, bore witness without observing. He did not remember those he carried. He did not mark their number. Each crossing was the same, each journey identical in its silence. Above the river, there was no sky, no light to guide the way, no darkness to obscure it. Only the constant presence of the threshold, stretching without end, carrying all things toward the same conclusion. The ferryman did not tire. He did not change. He did not leave. As long as the river flowed, and it would always flow, he remained upon it, neither beginning nor ending, but continuing. In time, the living would give him a name. They would speak of him with caution, with ritual, with offerings meant to ease the crossing they could not avoid. They would imagine his face, his voice, his purpose. But within the realm itself, none of this existed. He was not feared. He was not revered. He simply was. The ferryman in the dark, a presence that did not guide, yet ensured that all who arrived would pass. The river did not need him, but with him the passage became something that could be understood, not by those who crossed, but by the order of the cosmos itself. A transition now shaped, a boundary now visible, and beyond it the underworld remained unchanged, still, silent, waiting without expectation. The ferryman continued his quiet task, the river continued its endless flow, and all things, in time, would come to stand at its edge, and pass beyond it, carried without question into the depth where nothing moved. The crossing endured, and within it the silent figure remained, not as a guide, but as the shadow of inevitability itself. The crossing had been given form, the river marked the boundary, and the ferryman carried all things across it. The transition, once unseen, now existed as a quiet passage, a movement that required no choice, no understanding, only arrival. And beyond that crossing, the underworld remained as it had always been, still, unchanging, complete. Yet as the threshold above took shape, so too did the entrance below. Not as a barrier, not as something meant to deny or permit, but as a recognition that what had been crossed could not be crossed again. The gates. They did not rise from the ground, nor descend from above. They did not open or close in any visible sense. Like the river, like the ferryman, they emerged from the quiet necessity of form, the need for what had always been true to become visible within the order of things. They marked the point of no return, not by force, but by certainty. Those who had crossed the river did not hesitate before them. They did not pause, nor did they turn back. The idea of return did not exist here. What had ended could not begin again, and so the gates were not an obstacle, but a final acknowledgement. Beyond them lay the depth, not a place newly entered, but a condition fully realized. The souls passed through without motion, without resistance, without awareness, and once beyond, they were no longer at the edge of the underworld, but within it, entirely, completely, without division. The gates did not close behind them. They did not need to. What had passed through them no longer belonged to the side from which it came. The boundary was not maintained by structure, but by the nature of existence itself. The ferryman did not cross them. He remained at the threshold, bound not by command, but by alignment. His presence belonged to the river, to the passage, to the quiet movement between states. The gates marked the end of that movement. Beyond them, there was nothing to guide, nothing to carry, only the stillness that required no direction. The god of the underworld did not stand before the gates. He did not watch the arrivals, nor did he receive them as a host receives guests. There was no ceremony in this place, no acknowledgement of entry, and yet he was present, not at the gates, not beyond them, but within the entirety of the realm they opened into. For in a place without distance, presence does not gather at a point. It exists everywhere, equally, without movement. The gates did not define his domain, they revealed it. For the first time, the underworld had an entrance, not a beginning, but a recognition of what it meant to arrive. The souls that passed through them carried nothing forward except a faint trace of what had once been. No memory shaped their path, no identity guided their place. And yet, as they entered fully into the realm, the quiet distinctions that had begun with the first soul did not vanish. They remained, subtle, unspoken, but real. The underworld, though unchanged in its stillness, had begun to hold these differences within its silence. The gates did not create this change, but they marked its inevitability. For to enter a place is to belong to it, and what belongs cannot remain entirely without form. Still, nothing in the realm stirred. There was no movement to organize what had arrived, no voice to shape what would become of it. The gates stood, if standing could be said of something that did not move, as a quiet truth within the structure of existence. A threshold completed, a boundary understood. Beyond them, there was no passage, no crossing, no transition, only the underworld, and within it, the god who did not leave. The gates did not change the realm. They did not alter its silence, nor did they disturb its permanence. But they gave form to its edge to the final moment where one state became another, without return. The river flowed, the ferryman remained, the gates endured, and beyond them the silent kingdom held all that had passed, not as a collection, but as a completed whole. The entrance had been defined, and with it the underworld stood not only as a destination, but as a place that could be reached. Though never left, the gates remained, unopened, unclosed, eternal in their stillness, marking the final truth of all things that crossed them, that they had arrived, and would go no further. The gates did not open. They did not close. They did not move at all, and yet they marked a place where something had ended with such certainty that nothing beyond it could return to what came before. The boundary had been shaped, the passage had been given form. The underworld, once only a depth, now possessed an entrance that could be understood. But an entrance, even one that does not admit or deny, invites a presence. Not to guard, not to challenge, but to remain. And so, in time, something took its place before the gates. The Watcher. It did not arrive with purpose declared. It did not take its position through command. Like the ferryman upon the river, it emerged as a reflection of necessity, the quiet embodiment of something that had always been required, though never named. It did not stand as the living stand. It did not look upon the souls that passed through, nor did it turn away from them. Its awareness, if it could be called that, was not directed outward. It existed in the same stillness as the realm itself, unmoved by what occurred before it. And yet, it was present. A fixed point at the threshold. Not to intervene, but to witness without witnessing. Those who crossed the river and approached the gates did not see it. Sight belonged to the world above, to the realm of light and shadow. Here, there was only the quiet certainty of transition. The souls passed as they always had, without hesitation, without awareness of what stood before them. The Watcher did not acknowledge them, it did not count them, nor did it distinguish one from another. The differences that had begun to form within the underworld remained subtle, unspoken, not yet shaped into anything that required recognition. And so, the Watcher remained unchanged. It did not judge, it did not decide, it did not permit, it simply was. The presence of the Watcher did not alter the function of the gates. Nothing was added, nothing was taken away, but where there had once been only a boundary, there was now a presence that belonged to it, something that gave the threshold a stillness more defined, more anchored within the order of the realm. The ferryman guided souls to the edge. The river carried them. The gates marked their final crossing. And before those gates, the Watcher remained, not as a guardian, but as a constant. Above, the living world continued to move. It did not know of the Watcher, nor of the gates it stood before. It lived within its own rhythm, unaware that every ending led to a place where nothing required attention, and nothing was observed in the way the living understood observation. Below, the underworld did not change. The presence of the Watcher did not introduce movement, nor did it disturb the silence. It existed within that silence, part of it, inseparable from it. The god of the underworld did not speak to it. There was no exchange between them, no recognition that required form. The Watcher did not serve him, nor did it act on his behalf. It existed because the threshold existed. And where there is a threshold, there is always something that remains beside it, not to control, but to endure. Time did not pass here in the way it passed above, and so the Watcher did not age, did not change, did not become anything more or less than what it was. It remained as it had always been, though it had not always been present. A paradox held within stillness, a presence that had emerged without beginning, and would remain without end. The souls continued to cross. They passed the Watcher without knowing it. They entered the underworld without resistance. They became part of the silence that awaited them. And the Watcher remained, unmoving, unseeing, unchanging. The gates stood, the river flowed, the ferryman endured. And at the threshold between what had been and what would never be again, the Watcher held its place, not as a sentinel, but as a quiet affirmation that the boundary existed, and would never be undone. Nothing passed without crossing, nothing returned, and nothing that remained at the gates would ever leave them. The Watcher did not guard the entrance, it became it, a stillness within stillness, a presence that did not act, yet could not be removed. The threshold was complete, and at its edge, something remained forever, not to change what passed, but to ensure, in its silent way, that all things that arrived had truly crossed into what lay beyond. The threshold had been marked. The river carried all things toward it. The ferryman remained upon its quiet surface. The gates stood, without opening or closing, and before them the Watcher endured, unmoving, unseeing, unchanged. Nothing had been placed to prevent passage. Nothing had been placed to allow it. All who arrived crossed. All who crossed entered, and none returned. The order was complete. And yet, within that completeness, another presence began to take shape, not from necessity of passage, but from the nature of what lay beyond it. For the underworld was not merely a boundary, it was a realm. And a realm, even one defined by stillness, does not remain without something that belongs to its edge, not as a barrier, but as an embodiment of its finality. It did not emerge suddenly. It did not rise with force or sound. Like all things within this depth, it formed gradually, as if it had always been present, only now becoming visible within the quiet order of the place. A shape, low to the ground, still, yet aware in a way that did not resemble the awareness of the living. And then, more than one. 3. The guardian, it did not stand before the gates as the watcher remained. It did not belong to the river, nor to the crossing. It existed at the point where entrance became permanence, where what had passed into the underworld could no longer be imagined as ever having been elsewhere. 3 heads, not in motion, but in presence. Each turned in a direction that did not divide space, but completed it, not to observe, not to track movement, but to exist in a state where nothing could pass unnoticed, not because it was watched, but because nothing here could be otherwise. Its body did not shift, its form did not threaten. There was no aggression in it, no hostility, no intention to confront. It did not challenge those who arrived, nor did it act upon them. For nothing that entered the underworld required resistance, nothing sought to escape, nothing turned back. And yet the presence of the guardian altered the meaning of the entrance, not by changing its function, but by giving it weight. A finality made visible. Those who passed through the gates did not see it. They did not react. Their crossing remained as it had always been, silent, inevitable, without interruption. The guardian did not exist for them in any way they could perceive. It existed for the realm, for the boundary itself, for the quiet truth that what had entered would remain. The watcher endured without movement. The guardian endured with presence. And between them, the threshold became more than a passage. It became a certainty that could not be undone. The god of the underworld did not summon it. He did not name it. He did not command it to remain. But it aligned with him, as all things within the realm aligned with its nature. It did not serve him, it reflected him. A stillness that did not yield. A permanence that did not require enforcement, yet existed as if it were absolute. Time did not move here, and so the guardian did not age, did not grow, did not become anything beyond what it already was. It remained in the same state as the silence around it, complete, without change, without anticipation. Above, the living would one day imagine it differently. They would give it form in fear, in story, in the language of creatures that guarded and threatened. They would see in it something that could deny passage, something that could be confronted. But within the underworld, none of this was true. The guardian did not deny. It did not challenge. It did not act. It simply existed. A presence that ensured nothing needed to be enforced, because nothing could be otherwise. The river continued its quiet flow. The ferryman continued his endless crossing. The gates remained as they had always been. The watcher did not move, and now, at the edge where arrival became permanence, the guardian remained, not as a protector, but as a truth-given form. The underworld was not a place that could be left, not because something prevented departure, but because departure had no meaning here. And in that meaninglessness, the guardian endured. 3 heads, not watching. 1 body, not moving. a presence that did not act, yet made the finality of the realm undeniable. The threshold was no longer only a passage, it was a conclusion, and at that conclusion something remained, silent, eternal, and absolute. The Guardian did not stand against escape, it stood in a place where escape did not exist, and in that stillness it became inseparable from the truth it embodied, that all who entered remained. The underworld did not ask questions. It did not seek to know what had been, nor did it weigh what had ended. All who crossed the river, all who passed the gates, all who entered the silent depth, became part of the same stillness. For a time, this remained unchanged. The souls arrived, they settled, they endured. Distinction existed only as a faint trace, a quiet echo of what had once been, without form, without voice, without consequence. But as their number grew, as the silence deepened with the accumulation of countless endings, that faint distinction began to gather weight. Not enough to disrupt, not enough to divide, but enough to be felt. The underworld did not change its nature, yet something within its stillness began to take shape. Not imposed, not declared, but revealed. A recognition, not by the souls, but within the structure of the realm itself. For what had once been entirely indistinguishable began, in the quietest sense, to differ. Not in motion, not in form, but in the weight of what remained. Some carried a deeper stillness, others a lighter one. Some seemed to settle more completely, others held a trace that lingered. These were not judgments in the way the living would later imagine. There was no voice declaring right or wrong, no measure spoken, no decision made. And yet, the differences existed. And where differences exist, there is an order, even if that order is never named. The god of the underworld did not create this order. He did not observe the souls and assign them place, but he existed within the same stillness that now held these distinctions, and so he was aware of them in the same way he was aware of all things within his realm, without movement, without inquiry, without change. The first forms of judgment emerged, not as action, but as inevitability. Each soul, carrying what little remained of its being, did not settle in the same way as all others had once done. The realm received them as it always had, but now, within its silence, their place was not entirely without difference. No path led them, no force directed them, and yet they came to rest in accordance with what they carried. Those whose presence was light, whose trace dissolved more fully into the stillness, remained in a quiet, undisturbed expanse. Those whose trace held more weight, more persistence, settled differently, not apart, but not the same. The underworld did not separate them with walls, it did not assign regions, but the silence itself began to hold variations, subtle, unspoken, but real. This was judgment, not delivered, not imposed, but inherent. A reflection of what each soul had become at the moment of its ending. The guardian at the threshold did not intervene. The watcher did not acknowledge. The ferryman continued his endless crossing. Nothing in the passage changed. But within the realm, something had deepened. The emptiness was no longer uniform. It had gained dimension. A quiet layering of presence, shaped not by decision, but by the nature of what had arrived. The living would one day imagine judges, figures who would weigh the deeds of a life, who would decide where each soul would go. They would give names to these unseen forces, give voices to what had never spoken. But in the beginning, there were no judges, only the silence. And within that silence, the truth of each ending remained, not examined, not altered, simply revealed. The god of the underworld did not stand above this process. He did not oversee it. He was part of it, as the realm was part of it, a presence that did not act, yet within which all things took their final form. The judgment of souls was not a moment, it was not an event, it was a state, a condition, that began the instant a soul crossed into the underworld, and did not change thereafter. There was no appeal, no reconsideration, no movement from one state to another, for nothing here moved, nothing changed, nothing became anything other than what it had already reached. The silence held all things, but it did not hold them equally, and in that quiet inequality the underworld took on a new depth, not of space but of meaning. The souls endured, the realm remained, and within it, without voice, without decision, without change, the judgment was complete, not spoken, not given, but present, as it would remain, forever. Not all silence is the same. Within the underworld, where nothing moved and nothing changed, a quiet variation had begun to take shape. The judgment that was not spoken, not decided, had already settled into the nature of the realm. And from that silent distinction, a place emerged, not created, but revealed. A field, not of growth, not of decay, but of stillness spread across an endless expanse. The fields of asphodel. They did not bloom in the way fields above the earth once had. There was no sun to draw life upward, no wind to carry scent or motion. The asphodel did not grow toward anything, it simply existed, pale and unchanging, covering the ground like a memory that had forgotten its origin. This was where most came to rest, not by decision, not by guidance, but by the quiet nature of what they carried. Those whose lives had ended without weight, without distinction strong enough to remain, did not dissolve entirely into the deepest stillness. Nor did they settle into the heavier silence that lingered elsewhere. They came here, to a place that was neither absence nor burden. A middle stillness. The souls within the fields did not wander with purpose. They moved, if it could be called movement, in a slow and directionless drifting, not toward anything, not away from anything, but within the quiet certainty of their condition. They did not speak. They did not remember. And yet something of what they had been remained, not as thought, but as a faint outline of presence. They were not lost, but they were no longer defined. The asphodel stretched endlessly around them, uniform and pale, a landscape without variation. It did not change beneath their passage. It did not respond to their presence. It simply held them, as the underworld held all things, without resistance, without recognition. The god of the realm did not walk these fields. He did not need to. He existed within them as he existed within all parts of his domain, present without movement, aware without observation. The fields did not require his attention. They were not separate from him. They were part of the same stillness that defined him. Above, the living would one day imagine these fields as a place of forgetfulness, a realm where souls drifted without purpose, stripped of what they had once been. They would see in it a quiet tragedy, a loss that extended beyond death itself. But within the underworld, there was no tragedy. There was no sense of loss. Only completion. The souls in the fields were not aware of what they had lost, and so they did not mourn it. They existed in a state that required nothing beyond itself. The asphodel did not grow. It did not wither. It did not change with time, for time did not pass here in any measurable way. The fields remained as they were, as they had always been since their quiet emergence, endless, unmoving, and without distinction. And yet, within that uniformity, there was a presence. Not strong, not defined, but real. The countless souls, each carrying the faintest trace of what had once been, created a quiet density within the silence. Not a crowd, not a gathering, but a subtle layering of existence that gave the fields their own weight. This was not the deepest part of the underworld, nor was it the lightest. It was a place between, a resting ground for what had neither dissolved entirely nor remained distinct enough to settle elsewhere. The judgment had not placed them here. It had revealed that this was where they belonged. The fields did not change because of them, but without them, the fields would not exist. They were the shape of this place, just as the silence was the shape of the realm itself. Nothing in the underworld sought to leave, nothing sought to arrive, and yet the fields remained full, not with motion, not with life, but with the quiet presence of what had once been alive. The asphodel stretched on, unbroken, unchanging, endless, and within it the souls endured, not in suffering, not in peace, but in a state beyond both. A stillness that did not ask what came before, a silence that did not imagine what could come after. The fields of asphodel remained, as they always would, a quiet middle within a realm of endings, a place where most would come to rest, and where nothing, once arrived, would ever need to become anything else. Not all endings settled into quiet. Within the underworld, where stillness defined all things, there were depths where that stillness took on a different weight. The judgment that was never spoken had already shaped the realm, revealing distinctions that did not divide by force, but by nature. Beyond the pale stillness of the asphodel, beyond the quiet drift of those who neither held nor dissolved, there existed another condition, a deeper stillness, one that did not rest, but endured. The souls that came to this place did not arrive by decree. They were not sent. They were not chosen. They came as all souls came, carried by the same river, passed through the same gates, received by the same silent realm. And yet what they carried did not settle as others did. It remained, heavier, unyielding. A presence within them that did not dissolve into the stillness, but pressed against it, not in resistance, but in persistence. The underworld did not reject them, it did not cast them away, but it revealed them differently. The punishments began not as acts, but as conditions. A state where what remained within a soul could not find rest, not because rest was denied, but because it could not be reached. The silence did not soothe them, it reflected them. And in that reflection, something repeated, not in motion, not in time, but in being. The same weight, the same unyielding presence, endured without change, without release. The living would one day imagine this place as a realm of torment, of fire, of endless suffering, of trials imposed by unseen judges. They would tell stories of figures bound to impossible tasks, of cycles that never end, of pain that does not cease. But within the underworld there was no imposition. No force acted upon these souls. Nothing external created their condition. It arose from within them. What they carried had not ended. And in a realm where everything is meant to be complete, that incompletion became its own permanence. The punishment was not given. It was revealed. A state where stillness could not fully take hold. A place where silence existed, but could not be entered. These souls did not move. They did not struggle. They did not cry out. For there was no motion here, no voice, no passage of time that could carry them from one state to another. And yet their condition endured as something different from the rest of the realm. Not louder, not more active, but more dense, more fixed. A stillness that did not settle, but held itself in place. The god of the underworld did not intervene. He did not lessen their state, nor did he deepen it. He did not observe it as the living would observe suffering. He existed within it, as he existed within all things in his domain, present, unmoving, without alteration. The underworld did not change for them, but they revealed a part of it that had not been seen before, a depth where completion did not come easily, where what remained could not dissolve. This was not chaos, it was not a disruption of order, it was the order, fully realised. For in a realm defined by what has ended, anything that does not end completely must endure as it is. The punishments did not evolve, they did not increase or diminish, they remained constant, as all things here remained constant. The same condition, held forever, the same state, without change. Above, the living would fear this place. They would speak of it with caution, with dread, imagining a judgment that could be avoided, a fate that could be escaped. But the underworld did not threaten, it did not warn, it did not promise. It simply received, and in receiving, it revealed what was already there. The souls in this deeper stillness were not separated by walls or fire, they were not confined by anything external. They remained within the same vast realm as all others, and yet their condition set them apart. Not visibly, not audibly, but in the nature of their stillness. The punishment was not an addition, it was an absence of completion, and in a place where completion is all that exists, that absence became permanent. The silence endured, the realm remained unchanged, but within it there existed this deeper weight, a quiet unending condition where rest could not be reached. The damned did not move, they did not seek release, they did not know an alternative. They simply were as they would remain, forever held within a stillness that could not become whole. Not all stillness carried weight. Within the underworld, where silence revealed what each soul had become, there existed a quiet condition that did not sink, did not linger, and did not struggle to settle. It remained. Light, not in brightness, but in absence of burden. From this condition, another place emerged, not formed by separation, not created as a reward, but revealed as a natural resting ground for what had reached its end without resistance, without fracture, without anything left unresolved. The Isles of the Blessed. They did not rise above the underworld. There was no above here, no elevation or descent in any physical sense. And yet, they existed as something apart, not divided by distance, but by nature, where the fields of asphodel stretched in pale sameness, and the deeper stillness held those who could not fully rest. These isles existed in a quiet clarity, a stillness without weight, a silence without density. The souls who came to this place did not arrive with intention, they were not chosen, they were not guided. As with all things in the underworld, they came to rest where their nature revealed itself to belong, and here they remained in a state that did not press against the silence, but aligned with it completely. Nothing within them resisted completion. Nothing remained unresolved. They did not move, they did not speak. And yet there was a quiet presence in them that differed from all others. Not stronger, not more defined, but clearer. The isles themselves did not resemble the landscapes of the living world. There were no shifting forms, no cycles of growth or decay, and yet there was a suggestion of shape, a gentle structure within the stillness, as though the realm itself had softened in this place. Not changing, but less dense, less burdened. The silence here did not deepen, it opened. Not into space, but into ease. The god of the underworld did not favour this place. He did not grant it distinction. He existed within it, as he existed within all parts of his domain, equally, without preference, without movement. And yet, this place revealed a different aspect of the realm he embodied. Not only finality, but completion without resistance. The living would one day imagine this place as a reward, a destination earned through virtue, through action, through a life lived in accordance with unseen measures. They would speak of it as a place of peace, of rest, of something close to joy. But within the underworld, there was no reward. There was no granting. The isles did not give anything. They simply held what had already reached its end in a certain way. The souls here did not feel peace. They did not experience rest, for experience belongs to life. They simply existed in a state where nothing within them disturbed the silence, no weight, no persistence, no remainder that resisted completion. The isles did not expand. They did not contract. They did not change as more souls arrived. They existed as they always had since their quiet emergence, a place that was not separate, yet not the same. The judgment that had never been spoken was present here as it was everywhere else in the underworld. But here, it revealed itself as a kind of balance that did not need to be resolved further. The souls did not drift as they did in the asphodel. They did not endure a deeper stillness as those who carried weight. They remained unmoved, unburdened, complete. The silence around them did not press. It did not reflect anything back. It simply was, and they within it required nothing more. The underworld, in its vastness, held all states of completion, from the deepest weight to the lightest presence, from the indistinct drift to the quiet clarity of these isles. Nothing was outside of it, nothing was beyond it, and yet within it these differences remained, not imposed, not arranged, but inherent. The Isles of the Blessed did not stand apart from the realm. They were part of its truth, a reflection of what it meant for something to end without resistance. The God remained, the silence endured. And within that silence these isles existed, not as a promise, not as a destination, but as a quiet condition where nothing needed to settle further, because nothing remained unsettled. The isles did not offer, they did not give, they did not change, they simply held. And in that holding, they revealed a final possibility within the nature of endings. That completion, in its purest form, carries no weight at all. There was no movement left to measure. Within the underworld, where all things had arrived and none would depart, the passage of time no longer carried meaning in the way it once had. Above, time unfolded, one moment following another, each giving way, each fading. But here, nothing faded, nothing followed, everything remained. The silence, once a consequence of endings, had become something more enduring. It was no longer simply what followed life. It was a condition that existed beyond it, a stillness that did not depend on what came before, and did not lead to what might come after. It simply was. The souls, whether drifting through the pale fields, enduring their quiet weight, or resting in the clarity of the isles, did not change. They did not grow accustomed to their state. They did not resist it. They did not even remain within it as something experienced. They existed within it as something final. And finality does not evolve. The God of this realm did not count the passing of time. There was nothing to count. He did not mark the arrival of new souls, nor did he reflect upon those who had come before. The underworld did not gather history. It did not build upon itself. It held everything equally, without layering, without progression. Eternity, here, was not endless duration. It was the absence of duration altogether, a state where nothing moved forward, because nothing needed to. The river continued to flow, but not toward anything new. The ferryman continued his crossing, but not toward completion. The gates remained, not to open or close, but to exist as they always had. The watcher endured, the guardian remained. And beyond them all, the underworld stretched without distance, without horizon, without change. Above, The living would speak of eternity as something vast and unending, a future that never concludes. They would imagine it as time extended beyond measure, as something that continues forever. But beneath the earth, eternity was not something that continued. It was something that had already concluded. The difference was quiet, but absolute. For what continues still belongs to time, and what has concluded no longer does. The souls did not perceive eternity. They did not endure it as a length of existence. They were within it, inseparable from it, as a stone is inseparable from the ground it rests upon. The fields did not stretch further. The deeper stillness did not deepen. The aisles did not expand. Nothing increased. Nothing diminished. The underworld had reached its final state, not as an ending that would give way to something else, but as an ending that remained. This was its nature, and within that nature there was no need for change. The god who belonged to this realm reflected that same permanence. He did not age, he did not grow, he did not seek. He existed as the underworld existed, complete, unmoving, beyond the passage of time. Above, gods would come and go in the stories of the living. They would act, intervene, shift the course of events. But here, there was no action to take, nothing to alter, nothing to resolve. The underworld did not require a future. It had no need for one. Everything that would ever arrive had already found its place within it, not in sequence, not in order, but in a state that did not depend on arrival at all. The stillness of eternity was not silent because nothing existed. It was silent because everything had already become what it would always be. There was no anticipation, no memory in the sense the living would understand, only presence, unchanging, unending, final. The river flowed, the ferryman endured, the gates remained, the watcher did not move, the guardian held its place, the fields stretched. The deeper stillness persisted, the aisles remained clear, and through all of it the god of the underworld existed, not at the centre, not above or below, but within all of it, inseparable from the stillness that defined it. Eternity did not pass, it remained. And within that remaining, nothing was lost, nothing was gained, nothing was changed. The underworld had no future, because it had no need of one. It was already complete, and it would remain so, forever. Nothing entered the underworld that changed it. This had always been its nature. All who crossed the river, all who passed the gates, became part of the same stillness. The realm did not shift to receive them. It did not respond. It did not acknowledge. And yet, there came a presence that did not dissolve in the same way. Not because it resisted, not because it remained separate, but because what it carried had not yet reached completion. She did not arrive as the others had arrived. There was no quiet fading from life into absence, no natural descent into what had already ended. Her coming was not the continuation of a cycle, it was an interruption, not violent, not chaotic, but undeniable. The underworld, though unchanged in its nature, now held something that did not belong entirely to its condition. Persephone. She entered not as a soul, but as something still connected to the world above, a presence that had not yet released what it was. The river did not carry her in the same way. The crossing did not erase her distinction. The gates did not mark a finality for her, as they did for all others. She passed through them, and yet she had not ended. This had never happened before. The realm did not reject her. It did not resist her presence. But for the first time, its stillness encountered something that was not entirely still, not moving, but not complete. The difference was quiet, but it altered the depth of the silence. The god of the underworld did not turn toward her. He did not rise, nor did he step forward to receive her. There was no gesture, no acknowledgement in the way the living would understand it. And yet, her presence existed within his awareness in a way that nothing else had. Not because she demanded it, but because she had not yet become what all others had become. She remained connected to something beyond the realm, something that moved, something that changed, something that would not remain still forever. The underworld did not change around her. The fields did not shift. The deeper stillness did not deepen. The aisles did not alter. And yet her presence existed among them like a quiet divergence, not breaking the silence, but introducing into it the faintest suggestion of something unresolved. She did not wander, she did not speak, but she was not like the others. The souls that had settled into their final states remained as they always had, unchanged, unmoving, complete. But she carried something else. A connection. Not to memory, not to identity, but to continuation. The underworld had never held anything that could leave. Everything that entered remained. That was its nature, and yet, in her presence, that certainty became less absolute, not broken, but questioned, not by voice, but by existence. The God who ruled this realm did not impose upon her the stillness that defined all else. He did not force her into completion. He did not erase what remained of her connection to the world above. He allowed her to exist as she was, and in that allowance, something new took shape, not within the underworld itself, but within its relationship to what lay beyond it. For the first time, the boundary was not entirely final. There existed, within the depth of the realm, something that had not yet reached its ending, something that could, in time, move again. This did not disturb the silence, but it altered its meaning. The stillness was no longer only the result of what had concluded. It now held within it the quiet presence of something that would not remain forever. Persephone did not change the underworld, but she revealed that even within a realm of endings there could exist a thread that had not yet been fully drawn. The god remained. The realm endured. The silence held, and within that silence she existed, not as one who had ended, but as one who had entered without completing the journey all others had taken. The underworld remained complete, and yet for the first time it contained something that was not entirely finished, a presence that would not remain unchanged, a presence that would, in time, move between what was and what had already been. Her arrival did not break the stillness, but it introduced into it the quiet certainty of something that would not remain forever. And in a realm where nothing changed, that alone was enough to alter everything. She did not become still. Not in the way the underworld required of all things that entered it. Her presence remained as it had arrived, quiet, contained, yet carrying within it something that had not yet settled into completion. The realm did not change her, and she did not resist it. She existed within it as something both belonging and not entirely bound. This had never existed before. The god of the underworld, who embodied the stillness of all endings, did not move to shape her into what the realm held. He did not impose upon her the silence that defined everything else. Instead, he remained as he always had, unmoving, unaltered, present, without action. And yet, in her presence, something subtle took form. Not change, but relation. For the first time, the underworld was not only a domain of what had ended, but a place shared by two beings whose natures did not fully mirror one another. He was permanence. She was not. He was completion. She was not yet complete. And between them, without movement, without speech, there existed something that had never belonged to the realm before. A balance that was not fixed. She did not wander the fields as the souls did. She did not settle into the deeper stillness, nor did she dissolve into the quiet clarity of the Isles. None of these conditions held her, because she had not reached the state that defined them. And yet, she remained, not as a visitor, not as something passing through, but as something that had taken its place. The underworld did not name her, but the living world, in time, would. Queen, a word that implies rule, authority, command. But here, it meant something else, not power over the realm, but presence within it that could not be reduced to its stillness. She did not govern the souls. She did not alter their state. She did not stand above the silent order that had already taken shape. But her existence introduced into that order something that could not be ignored. A point of difference. A presence that did not dissolve. The god did not speak to her. But he did not remain untouched by her presence, not in the way the living would understand influence, not as a force that alters or persuades, but as a quiet alignment that shifted the meaning of what already existed. For the first time, the underworld was not entirely isolated from the world above, not through passage, not through movement, but through her. She carried with her something of the living world, not memory, not identity, but the condition of continuation. And that condition existed now within a realm that had never known it. The silence did not break. The stillness did not move. But they were no longer the only truths within the depth. The presence of the Queen did not change what the underworld was, but it changed what it meant. The souls remained as they had always been, settled into their final states, unmoving, unchanging, complete. The river flowed, the ferryman endured, the gates stood, the watcher remained, the guardian did not move, and within all of this she existed. Not above, not below, but alongside. A second presence in a realm that had only ever known one. This did not disturb the balance, it deepened it. For where there had once been only finality, there was now the quiet suggestion of something that could return, something that did not belong entirely to endings. The god did not leave his realm. He would never leave, but through her, the realm itself would no longer remain entirely closed. The Queen did not rule the underworld. She completed it in a way that did not alter its nature, but expanded its meaning. For the first time, the silent kingdom held within it both what had ended, and what would in time move again. She remained, not as a soul, not as something that had concluded, but as something that existed between states, and in that existence she became inseparable from the realm itself. The Queen of the underworld, not by command, not by decree, but by presence, a presence that would not fade into the silence, a presence that would return, and in returning would bind the world above and the world below in a way that had never been possible before. The underworld remained still, but it was no longer entirely alone. The underworld had never required balance. It existed as completion, a realm where all things arrived and nothing continued. Above, life unfolded in motion, in growth, in change. Below, everything had already reached its end. There was no exchange between them, no return, no cycle, only separation. And yet with her presence, that separation no longer remained absolute. She did not move constantly between the worlds. She did not disrupt the stillness with motion or sound. But the possibility of movement now existed where it had never existed before. And possibility, even unfulfilled, alters the nature of what surrounds it. The god of the underworld remained as he had always been, unmoving, unchanging, complete within his domain. He did not seek the world above, he did not reach toward it, but through her, the distance between the realms was no longer without meaning. There was now a connection, not a path, not a passage that all could follow, but a thread, invisible, unbroken. binding what lived and what had ended in a way that did not disturb either, but allowed them to exist not only apart, but in relation. The living world did not feel this change immediately. Its rhythms continued as they always had, life emerging, enduring, and eventually reaching its quiet conclusion. The sky still stretched, the earth still carried, the sea still moved in its slow, endless patterns. But beneath that continuity, something subtle had shifted. Life was no longer only a movement toward ending, it had become part of a larger pattern. A balance, not of equal forces, but of connected states. The underworld, once entirely closed, now held within it something that did not belong solely to its stillness. And the world above, though still unaware, was no longer entirely separate from what lay beneath it. This was not a cycle in the way the living would later understand. It was not a repetition, not a return of the same forms again and again. It was something quieter, a continuity that did not erase endings, but gave them a place within a larger order. The Queen in her presence did not alter the fate of souls. She did not release them, she did not carry them back. But she remained connected to both realms, and in that connection the idea of permanence began to change. Not within the underworld, it remained still, unmoving, final, but in its meaning. For what is permanent when something can return? Not all, not most, but something. The distinction was enough. The god of the underworld did not question this. He did not resist it. He did not seek to restore the absolute separation that had once defined his realm. He remained as he was. But the realm itself now existed within a balance it had never known. Life did not lose its direction toward ending. Death did not lose its finality. But between them, there was now a quiet relation, a connection that did not undo either, but held them within the same order. The souls continued to cross the river. The ferryman continued his endless passage. The gates remained. The watcher endured. The guardian held its place. The field stretched. The deeper stillness persisted. The aisles remained clear. Nothing within the underworld changed. And yet, everything had shifted. For the realm was no longer only an ending. It had become part of something that extended beyond itself, not through motion, not through change, but through connection. The balance of life and death did not exist as a struggle. It did not require maintenance. It was not held in place by force. It existed because it had become inevitable. The presence of the Queen ensured that what was above and what was below could never again be entirely separate. Even in stillness, there was now relation. Even in finality, there was now connection. The god remained. The Queen remained. And between them, without movement, without sound, the balance endured. Life would continue. Death would remain. And the underworld, unchanged in its nature, would exist not only as the end of all things, but as part of a greater whole that did not break its silence, yet extended beyond it. The balance did not shift. It settled. And in that settling, the world above and the world below became inseparable, not as one, but as two conditions that could no longer exist without the other. The change did not begin below. The underworld remained as it had always been, still, complete, untouched by movement. The presence of the Queen had altered its meaning, but not its nature. Nothing there grew, nothing there faded, nothing there turned from one state into another. But above, the world had never been still. And now, for the first time, its movement began to follow a pattern it had not known before. A withdrawal, not sudden, not violent, but gradual, as though something within the world had begun to recede. The earth, which had once carried life in an unbroken rhythm, no longer held it in the same way. Growth did not cease, but it slowed. The fields did not empty, but they quieted. The air itself seemed to pause, as though waiting for something that had not yet returned. This had not happened before. Life had always moved forward, uninterrupted, each moment giving way to the next without hesitation. But now there were moments where that movement lessened, where the world did not stop, but softened. This was not death. Nothing had ended, and yet something had been taken away, or rather something had descended. The queen, who existed between the realms, did not remain below without consequence. Her presence in the underworld was not isolated. It extended beyond it, into the world she had not entirely left. When she remained beneath the earth, the world above felt the absence, not as loss, but as a quiet reduction of what once was constant. The living did not understand it. They could not name what had changed, nor could they see its cause, but they felt it in the way the earth responded, in the way growth hesitated, in the way the world itself seemed to draw inward. And then, without warning, it returned, not with force, not with sound, but with a quiet reawakening. The earth, which had softened, began once more to rise. What had slowed resumed its movement. What had quieted began again to unfold. Life, which had not ended, regained its fullness. The pattern had begun. Descent. Return. Not as a cycle of repetition, but as a rhythm. The queen moved between the realms, not constantly, not freely, but inevitably. And with each movement the world above responded. When she remained below, the earth entered a quiet stillness, a reflection of the realm she inhabited. When she returned above, that stillness lifted, and life resumed its motion. This was not imposed. The god of the underworld did not send her. He did not call her back. He remained as he had always been, unmoving, untouched by the shifting world above. And yet, through her, that world had become bound to his. The underworld did not change. But it was now reflected, not in its silence, but in the pauses within life. The living would come to name these changes. They would call them seasons, times of growth and times of quiet, of fullness and of retreat. They would measure them, expect them, build their lives around their return. But beneath those names, the truth remained simple. The world above had begun to remember the underworld, not as a place, but as a condition. A stillness that did not belong to life, yet now touched it. The balance that had formed between the realms now extended beyond the boundary of death. It reached into life itself. The earth did not die when the queen descended. It rested. The world did not end when she remained below. It quieted. And when she returned, it did not begin again. It continued. The distinction was quiet, but absolute. For the first time, life carried within it the memory of stillness, not as an ending, but as a presence that would come and go. The god remained below, the queen moved between. And the world above began to change in response. The river continued to flow. The ferryman endured. The gates remained. The watcher did not move. The guardian held its place. The field stretched. The deeper stillness persisted. The aisles remained clear. Nothing in the underworld altered. And yet, above, everything had taken on a new rhythm. The seasons were not a cycle of life and death. They were a reflection of the balance between them. A quiet echo of the queen's presence in both realms. A movement that did not belong to the underworld, yet could not exist without it. The world had learned to pause. And in that pause, it had learned something of stillness, not as an ending, but as a part of its own unfolding. The seasons endured, and through them, the connection between what lived and what had already ended became something that could be felt, not below, where nothing changed, but above, where everything now moved in response to what lay beneath. The balance held, and the world, for the first time, breathed in rhythm with what it could not see. The underworld did not call to the gods. It did not summon. It did not invite. It remained as it had always been, complete, unmoving, without need of anything beyond itself. And yet, on rare occasions, something descended that did not belong to its stillness. Not as the Queen had come, not bound between realms, not divided in nature, but as a presence that arrived and would leave. A god. The descent was never hurried. It did not break the silence, nor disturb the order of the realm. It occurred as all things occurred here, quietly, without spectacle, without announcement. The river did not change its flow. The ferryman did not pause. The gates did not mark the arrival as they marked the souls. The watcher remained. The guardian did not move. And yet the presence was known, not because it demanded attention, but because it did not belong. The gods of the world above carried within them motion, not of body, but of nature. They were bound to change, to action, to influence. Even in stillness, they held the possibility of movement. And in a realm where nothing moved, that possibility was enough to distinguish them. They did not linger. They could not. The underworld was not a place that could be inhabited by what had not ended. It did not reject them, but neither did it receive them as it received the dead. They passed through it as one passes through a fort, briefly, without altering its substance. Their purpose, when they came, was never of the realm itself. They did not descend to change the underworld. They did not come to govern, nor to interfere with what had already been completed. They came for something beyond it. A soul, a message, a presence that had entered the realm and was sought again. These visits did not disrupt the order. Nothing within the underworld resisted them. The souls did not react. The fields did not shift. The deeper stillness did not deepen. The isles did not alter. The god of the underworld did not rise to meet them. He remained, as he always had. But their presence existed within his awareness, as all things within his domain existed, not as intrusion, but as fact. They did not command him. They did not challenge him. There was no struggle between realms, no conflict of will, only a quiet acknowledgement that what had entered the underworld did not belong to them in the same way it belonged to him. And yet, in rare moments, something was allowed to leave. Not freely, not without condition, but not entirely denied. These moments were not acts of mercy. They were not decisions shaped by emotion or persuasion. They were part of the same balance that had already been formed, the quiet relation between what lived and what had ended. The Queen had introduced that relation, and through it, the absolute boundary had softened, not in its function, but in its meaning. The gods who descended did not belong to the underworld, but for a moment they existed within it, and in that existence they encountered something that did not change in response to them. The silence did not bend, the stillness did not shift. The realm remained what it was. Complete, final, unmoved by the presence of those who would leave it again. Above, the living would tell stories of these visits, of gods who descended into darkness, who faced trials, who spoke with the ruler of the dead, who returned with what they had sought. They would imagine these moments as journeys, as acts of courage or defiance. But within the underworld, they were something quieter. A brief alignment between realms, a presence that entered, remained and departed without altering what it passed through. The god did not follow them when they left. He did not watch them ascend. He did not consider what they carried away. For nothing that left the underworld changed what remained within it. The river continued to flow. The ferryman endured. The gates remained. The watcher did not move. The guardian held its place. The souls endured. The silence remained complete. The visits were rare. And when they ended, it was as though they had never occurred. Not erased, but absorbed into a realm where nothing accumulates, and nothing lingers beyond what it already is. The gods returned to the world above. The underworld remained, and the boundary between them, though no longer absolute, continued to hold, not through resistance, but through the nature of what each realm was. The rare visits passed like a breath that does not disturb the air, and when they were gone, the stillness remained exactly as it had been, unchanged, unbroken, eternal. Most who crossed into the underworld did not know they had arrived. They came as all things came, carried by the quiet current, passed beyond the gates, settled into the stillness that did not question what had been. Their presence did not disturb the realm, because they had already reached their end. But there were others, rare, unnatural, those who entered without ending, not as gods, whose nature allowed them to pass without belonging, but as mortals still bound to life, still carrying within them the movement that had not yet ceased. Heroes. They did not descend by inevitability. They chose, or believed they chose, drawn by purpose, by desire, by something unresolved in the world above that could not be left to rest. They crossed the boundary, not as those who had completed their path, but as those who sought to move beyond it. The underworld did not resist them, it did not close itself, but their presence was unlike that of any soul that had ever entered. They moved, not quickly, not freely, but they moved. And in a realm where nothing moved, this was a quiet disruption, not of order, but of condition. The fields did not respond to them. The deeper stillness did not shift. The isles remained as they were. But the heroes passed through these places as something separate from them, something not yet claimed by the silence. They saw. Though sight had no true place here, they perceived the realm in a way the dead could not. They carried with them the last trace of the world above, the ability to distinguish, to recognize, to move with intention. But that ability did not belong here. And so it dimmed, not taken, not stripped away, but quieted, as all things are quieted in this depth. The god of the underworld did not rise to meet them. He did not block their path. He did not welcome them. He remained as he always had, present without action, aware without movement. And yet, the presence of the living within his realm was not without consequence. For they did not belong to completion. They carried within them something unfinished, and in a place where everything is final, the unfinished does not settle. It resists, not by struggle, but by its nature. The heroes felt this, not as pain, not as fear, but as a weight that was not theirs, a stillness that pressed against their movement, a silence that did not recognize what they were. They did not remain long. They could not. The underworld was not a place for the living to inhabit. It did not expel them, but it did not hold them either. Their presence could not become part of the realm without first becoming what the realm required. And so, they moved through it as something temporary. They came for reasons the underworld did not share. To retrieve, to speak, to defy what could not be undone. These purposes had meaning above. Here, they were without weight. The souls they sought did not respond. The silence did not yield. The conditions of the realm did not change. And yet, sometimes, they left with what they had come for. Not always, not fully, not without condition. The boundary, once absolute, had been altered by the presence of the Queen. And through that alteration, even the living could, for a moment, pass through what had once been unreachable. But the underworld did not belong to them, and when they departed, they carried with them something that could not be seen, a quiet understanding, not of what they had witnessed, for nothing here could be witnessed as the living understand it, but of what it meant to end. They returned to the world above. They resumed their movement, their purpose, their unfinished paths. But they were no longer untouched. They had entered a place where nothing changes, and in doing so, they had encountered something that could not be undone by returning. The god remained, the realm endured, the silence held, the heroes were gone. And the underworld, as it had always been, absorbed their passing without alteration. They had entered, they had left, and yet, in a place where nothing changes, even their brief presence became part of its quiet truth, not remembered, not recorded, but contained within the stillness that holds all things equally. The heroes had crossed into what should not be crossed, and returned, but the underworld remained unchanged, as it always would. Every path, no matter how distant, led here, not by design, not by intention, but by the quiet certainty that all things which begin will one day reach their end. Above, life unfolded in countless forms, each distinct, each carrying its own rhythm, its own measure of time. No two paths were the same, no two endings arrived in the same way, and yet when they came here, to the same boundary, the same river, the same silent crossing, the same gate that did not open, the same stillness that did not change. The underworld did not prepare for their arrival. It did not anticipate. It did not gather itself in expectation, for it did not need to. All things, in time, would come. And when they did, they would be received in the only way this realm could receive them. Without question, without alteration, without recognition of what had been. The silence did not greet in the way the living greet. There was no welcome, no acknowledgement, no passage marked by ceremony or pause, and yet it greeted all things equally, in its constancy, in its refusal to change, in its absolute stillness. The soul, upon crossing, did not feel this greeting. Feeling belonged to life. But something within the structure of existence shifted as each one arrived, not in the realm itself, but in the completion of what had been. For the moment of arrival was not a beginning. It was not a transition into something new. It was the confirmation of what had already occurred. An ending, now fully realized. The silence did not erase what had come before. It did not remember it either. It simply held what remained. And what remained was no longer the life that had been lived, but the quiet imprint of its conclusion. All differences, all distinctions, all variations of existence, they arrived here, and here they were revealed for what they had become. Some settled into the pale fields, some endured the deeper stillness, some rested within the quiet clarity of the isles, but all were received the same way. Through silence, without resistance, without preference. The god of the underworld did not greet them. He did not rise to acknowledge their arrival. He did not speak, and yet his presence was part of the greeting itself. For he was not separate from the realm, he was its embodiment. And to enter the underworld was, in a way that required no understanding, to enter into his presence. Not as one enters a place ruled by another, but as one becomes part of something that does not distinguish between what has arrived. The Queen remained. Her presence, though different, did not alter this truth. She did not greet the souls. She did not guide them. She existed within the same silence, carrying within her the only trace of movement that remained in a realm without it. But even that movement did not extend to those who arrived, for all who crossed were greeted the same way, by nothing, and in that nothing everything was complete. The silence did not comfort, it did not disturb, it did not judge, it did not change, it simply received. And in receiving, it brought all things to their final state. Above, the living would imagine this moment. They would give it shape, give it voice, give it meaning in the language of fear or peace. They would imagine a greeting that welcomed or rejected, a presence that acknowledged their arrival. But the truth remained quieter. There was no voice, no figure waiting, no moment of recognition, only the silence, and the certainty that what had begun had now reached its end. The river continued. The ferryman endured. The gates remained. The watcher did not move. The guardian held its place. The fields stretched. The deeper stillness persisted. The aisles remained clear, and through all of it, the silence greeted every soul the same way, without difference, without change, without end. It did not welcome them. It became them. And in that becoming, the final truth of all things was realized, that every path, no matter how distant, no matter how different, no matter how full or how empty, leads here, to a place where nothing continues. And nothing needs to. The silence remained, and it would greet all things, forever. Nothing was remembered, not in the way the living remember. There were no voices recalling what had been, no images held in thought, no past carried forward into the stillness. The underworld did not preserve memory as something active, something that could be revisited or reshaped. And yet, something remained, not as recollection, but as weight. Each soul, upon arrival, carried only what could not be undone by ending. Not the details of a life, not the moments that had passed, but the quiet imprint of what that life had become in its final state. This imprint did not speak, it did not reveal itself. But it existed, and within the silence of the underworld, it settled. The fields of asphodel held those whose imprint was faint, not absent, but softened beyond distinction. The deeper stillness held those whose imprint endured with a density that could not dissolve. The aisles held those whose imprint carried no resistance at all. These were not memories. They were not stories. They were the shape left behind when everything else had fallen away. The underworld did not gather these shapes into anything that could be known. It did not assemble them into a past. It did not preserve them as something that could be revisited. It simply held them, and in that holding, a quiet accumulation formed, not of events, not of lives, but of endings. The realm did not change because of this accumulation. It did not grow heavier in any measurable sense, but within its stillness there existed a depth that was not empty. A presence that came from all that had once been, now reduced to what could not be erased by completion. The god of the underworld did not remember the souls. He did not distinguish one from another, but he existed within the same depth that held their imprint, and so their presence was part of his realm in a way that required no awareness. He did not carry their past, he carried their conclusion. The queen, who remained between states, did not recall them either. Her connection to the world above did not extend to what had already ended. She did not bring memory into the underworld, and yet her presence allowed the living to continue remembering. Above, memory moved. It changed. It faded. It returned in fragments, but below, nothing moved. And so, what remained did not change. The weight of memory in the underworld was not memory at all. It was permanence without recollection. A trace that could not be altered because it was no longer experienced. The living would imagine their memories continuing after death, that what they had known would remain with them, that their past would follow them into the next state of being. But the underworld did not hold memory in that way. It did not allow the past to persist as something active. It allowed only what the past had become at its final moment. The difference was quiet, but absolute. For memory belongs to time, and time does not pass here. The souls did not recall. They did not forget. They existed beyond both. And yet their presence shaped the realm in a way that could not be undone. The underworld was not empty. It was filled with the quiet weight of all that had ended. Not as stories, not as voices, but as a depth that held the final truth of each existence. The silence did not speak of what had been, but it contained it, not in detail, but in essence. The river continued to flow. The ferryman endured. The gates remained. The watcher did not move. The guardian held its place. The field stretched. The deeper stillness persisted. The aisles remained clear. And within all of it, the weight of memory existed, not as something remembered, but as something that could never be changed. The underworld did not recall the past, but it held its final form, and in that holding, nothing was lost, nothing was altered, nothing was forgotten. Because nothing needed to be remembered, the weight remained, and it would remain, as all things do once they have reached their end. Above, the world continued. It moved as it always had, in cycles that now carried the quiet rhythm of descent and return, in lives that began and ended without knowing the full shape of their path. The seasons came and passed. The sky shifted. The earth yielded and received. Nothing in that world remained still, and yet everything that had once belonged to it would, in time, no longer remain there. It would come below, to a place where movement did not follow, to a realm where nothing continued, and once it had arrived, the world it came from no longer remained. Not because it ceased to exist, not because it was destroyed, but because it no longer belonged. The underworld did not erase the world above. It did not deny it. It simply existed beyond it. And within that existence, what had once been part of the living world became something else entirely. The souls did not remember the sky. They did not recall the earth. They did not carry with them the sound of wind, the warmth of light, or the movement of time. These things did not follow them. They could not, for they belonged to a state that had already ended. The first soul, long ago, had carried a faint trace of distinction into the silence. That trace had shaped the realm. It had allowed difference to remain. But it had not preserved the world from which that difference came. The world was not remembered. It was left behind completely. And in that leaving, it became something that no longer had presence within the underworld. The weight that remained was not of the world itself. It was of what the soul had become at its end. Everything else fell away. This was not loss. Loss requires awareness, and awareness of what has been left behind belongs to life. Here, there was no such awareness. The souls did not feel the absence of the world. They did not long for it. They did not turn toward it. For there was no turning here, only remaining. The god of the underworld did not remember the world above. He did not look toward it. He did not measure its changes or mark its passing. It existed, but not for him. His realm was complete without it. The queen, who moved between the two, carried within her the only thread that still connected them. But even she did not bring the world into the underworld. She moved between states, not carrying one into the other, but existing in both without merging them. And so the separation remained, not absolute as it had once been, but final in a different way. For what entered the underworld did not carry the world with it. It became something beyond it. The living would one day fear this more than death itself, not the ending of life, but the forgetting of it. The idea that all they had known, all they had been, all that had shaped them, would not follow them beyond the final threshold. They would imagine this as emptiness, as absence, as something taken away. But within the underworld, there was no taking, only completion. The world was not forgotten in the sense that it had been removed. It was forgotten because it no longer existed in any form that could remain. It had already passed, and what remained did not require it. The silence did not echo with what had been. It did not reflect it. It did not preserve it. It simply held what had come to its end, and that was enough. The river continued to flow. The ferryman endured. The gates remained. The watcher did not move. The guardian held its place. The fields stretched. The deeper stillness persisted. The aisles remained clear. And within all of this, the world above had no presence. Not hidden, not distant, but absent. Completely. The souls did not remember where they had come from. The realm did not carry what they had left behind. The god did not turn toward what existed beyond his domain. The queen alone moved between them, and even she did not bridge the two into one. The world continued. The underworld remained, and between them there was no memory that passed from one to the other. Only a connection that did not carry what had been. The world was not destroyed. It was not lost. It simply no longer belonged to those who had left it. And so, it was forgotten. Not by choice, not by force, but by the nature of what it means to end. The underworld did not remember the world, because it had no need to. And within its silence, nothing that had once been alive required that memory to remain. The world continued above, unseen, unfelt, unremembered, and below, all things that had once belonged to it remained, not as part of it, but as something that had moved beyond it entirely. The world was forgotten, and in that forgetting, the final separation was complete, not by distance, but by the quiet truth that what has ended no longer belongs to what continues. Above, life continued to unfold. It moved through its quiet rhythms, growth and stillness, fullness and retreat, the subtle turning of seasons shaped by a presence that moved between worlds. Nothing remained unchanged. Nothing remained still for long. And within that movement, something constant endured. Endings. Not sudden, not chaotic, but inevitable. Each life, no matter how it unfolded, no matter how it rose or fell, carried within it the same quiet certainty that it would one day reach its conclusion. And when it did, it would follow the same path as all that had come before. To the river, to the crossing, to the gates, to the silence that did not change. The underworld did not count these arrivals. It did not measure the passage of souls. It did not recognize the continuity of what the living would call a cycle. For within it, there was no repetition, no sequence, no before or after. And yet, from the perspective of the world above, a pattern had formed, lives emerged, lives ended, souls descended, and the process began again. This was not a cycle in the sense of return. The souls did not come back as they had been. They did not rise again into life, nor did they repeat what had already been lived. The movement was one direction, always downward, always toward completion. And yet, because life continued to arise, because endings continued to follow beginnings, the pattern never ceased. It did not close. It did not resolve. It simply continued, endlessly. The living would see this and call it a cycle. They would imagine a turning wheel, a repetition of states, a return to beginnings after endings had been reached. But the underworld did not return anything. It did not release, it did not renew, it held. And what it held remained. The endlessness did not exist below, it existed above, in the continuation of life, in the constant emergence of new beginnings that would one day become endings. The underworld was not part of a cycle, it was the end of one. But because life never ceased, because the world above continued to give rise to what would eventually descend, The passage between them never ended. The river flowed without pause. The ferryman endured without rest. The gates remained without change. The watcher did not move. The guardian held its place. The souls continued to arrive. And yet, nothing within the underworld accumulated. Nothing grew. Nothing became more than what it already was. The presence of countless souls did not alter the realm, for there was no time in which their arrival could gather into something greater. Each soul existed in its final state, unchanging, separate in its condition, yet part of the same stillness. The god remained, unmoved by the endless arrival, unchanged by the continuation of what lay above. For to him there was no continuation, only presence. The queen moved between the worlds. Her descent and return shaped the rhythm of life, but did not alter the finality of death. Through her, the connection endured, but the direction did not change. All things that began would still end. All things that ended would still remain. The endless cycle was not a circle. It did not return to where it had started. It was a line that continued without closing. Life gave rise to life, and each life, in time, gave way to death. And death did not return to life. It remained. The living, standing within their movement, could not see this clearly. They felt the repetition of seasons, the continuation of generations, the quiet sense that what ends is followed by something new. But what was new was not what had been, and what had ended did not begin again. The distinction was quiet, but it defined everything. The underworld did not participate in the cycle, it concluded it, and because life continued, the conclusion was reached again and again without ever changing what it was. The silence endured, the realm remained complete, and above, the endless unfolding continued, unaware that every beginning was already part of something that would never return. The cycle did not belong to the underworld, but it led to it, always, without exception, without end. The river flowed, and it would never cease. For as long as life continued above, the passage into stillness would remain, endless, unbroken, and forever moving toward a place where nothing moved at all. He did not ascend, not once, not for a moment. From the time he descended into the silent depth and became one with the stillness that defined it, he remained, not as one confined, not as one held against his will, but as one who had no reason to go elsewhere. The sky existed, the earth moved, the sea shifted in its endless quiet unrest. And above all of these, the world continued in its rhythms of change and renewal. But none of this belonged to him, not because he was denied it, but because it did not reflect what he was. The god of the underworld did not leave, because there was nowhere else that required him. Above, the gods acted. They moved between places, shaped events, responded to the unfolding of life. Their presence carried motion, intention, consequence. But here, in the depth where nothing moved, no action was required. Nothing needed to be changed, nothing needed to be guided. Everything had already reached its end, and so he remained. Not at a throne, not at a centre, but within the entirety of the realm, present in the same way the silence was present, without location, without boundary, without movement. The souls did not look to him, they did not seek him, they did not know him. For knowing requires distinction, and here distinction had no voice. And yet he was not absent. He was the condition of the realm itself. To exist within the underworld was, in a way that required no awareness, to exist within him. The queen, who moved between worlds, would ascend. She would leave the stillness and return to the shifting rhythms above, carrying with her the connection that bound the two realms together. But he did not follow. He did not rise with her. He did not stand at the threshold as she crossed. He remained, not in separation, but in permanence. Their relation did not require movement. It existed without it. The living would one day imagine him differently. They would speak of him as distant, as withdrawn, as a figure who chose isolation or was bound to it by unseen forces. They would wonder why he did not walk among the other gods, why he did not take part in the world above. But within the truth of the realm, there was no isolation, only alignment. He did not leave, because leaving had no meaning. What would it mean for stillness to move? What would it mean for completion to seek continuation? There was no answer to these questions. And so, they did not arise. The river flowed, the ferryman endured, the gates remained. The watcher did not move. The guardian held its place. The fields stretched. The deeper stillness persisted. The aisles remained clear. And within all of this, he remained. Not observing, not directing, but existing as the unchanging presence that gave the realm its certainty. Nothing in the underworld required departure. Nothing in it suggested movement toward anything else. It was complete. And he, within it, was complete. Above, time continued. Below, it did not. Above, things changed. Below, they did not. And he belonged to what did not change. The Queen's movement did not alter this. The visits of gods did not alter this. The rare passage of heroes did not alter this. The endless arrival of souls did not alter this. Nothing altered this. Because nothing here altered anything. The God who never leaves was not defined by absence from the world above. He was defined by presence within a realm that did not require departure. He did not turn away from the sky. He did not refuse the earth. He simply existed where he belonged. And in that belonging, there was no reason to be elsewhere. The silence endured. The realm remained. And within it, he remained, not as a ruler who stayed, but as a presence that could not be separated from the place it defined. He did not leave. Because leaving would imply that something remained beyond what he was, and there was nothing beyond completion. The god of the underworld remained, as he always would, unmoving, unchanging, eternal in a way that did not extend into time, but existed outside of it. He did not leave, and he never would. Nothing follows this, not because something is denied, not because something is taken away, but because there is nowhere else for anything to go. The underworld, in its vast and unmoving depth, does not lead to another place. It does not open into something beyond itself. It does not transform into anything new. It remains, as it has always remained. The river continues its quiet flow, though it does not carry anything toward a future. The ferryman endures, though his task does not progress toward completion. The gates stand, though they do not open into anything other than what already is. The watcher remains. The guardian does not move. The fields stretch without end. The deeper stillness holds what cannot settle. The aisles remain clear, untouched by weight. And within all of this, the god remains. Unmoving. Unchanging. Complete, the Queen moves between worlds, carrying with her the quiet thread that binds what lives to what has ended. Above, the seasons continue their rhythm, descent and return, fullness and retreat. Life moves forward, shaped by a pattern it cannot fully see. But below, nothing moves. Nothing shifts in response. Nothing anticipates what will come. For nothing comes here that has not already arrived. The silence that defines this realm is not empty. It is full beyond measure. Not with sound, not with motion, but with presence, the final state of all that has ever been. Each soul remains as it has become, not changing, not evolving, not seeking. The faint traces of distinction endure, shaping the quiet variations within the stillness, but never altering them. The fields do not fill. The deeper stillness does not deepen. The aisles do not expand. Nothing increases, nothing diminishes. For there is no time in which such changes could occur. There is only the quiet permanence of what has reached its end. The living would imagine this as a conclusion, a final moment after which nothing remains. They would imagine an ending that closes, that fades, that leaves behind emptiness. But the underworld does not fade. It does not close. It does not diminish. It remains as fully as it has ever been. The difference is not in existence. It is in movement. Above, everything moves. Below, nothing does. And in that stillness, the final truth of all things is held without question. That what has ended does not become something else. It does not transform. It does not continue. It simply is. Forever. The God does not speak this truth. He does not declare it. He does not need to. For he is not separate from it. He is its presence. The Queen, though she moves, does not change this. Her return above does not carry anything from below. Her descent does not bring the world into the stillness. She exists between. But the underworld remains beyond. The rare visits of gods, the passage of heroes, the endless arrival of souls, none of these alter what the realm is. They pass through it, touch its edges, exist within it briefly or eternally. But the quiet remains unchanged. There is no final moment within the underworld, no point at which something concludes. For everything here has already concluded. The silence is not waiting. It is not anticipating. It is not preparing. It is complete. And in that completeness, there is nothing more to come. The river will continue to flow. The ferryman will continue to carry. The gates will continue to stand. The watcher will continue to remain. The guardian will continue to endure. The souls will continue to arrive. And yet nothing will ever change. This is the quiet that remains forever, not a silence that follows something else, but a silence that exists beyond all things that follow. The living world will continue its motion. It will rise and fall, begin and end, carry forward and recede. But all of it will lead here, not to be undone, not to be erased, but to become still. The God will remain. The realm will endure. And the quiet will not break. It will not shift. It will not fade. For it does not belong to time. It does not belong to change. It belongs only to what is final. And what is final does not pass. It remains forever. The silence does not end. Because it is not something that began. It has always been waiting beneath all things, not as a force, not as a place, but as a truth. And when all things arrive within it, that truth becomes complete. The quiet remains, and nothing follows it, because nothing needs to. There are places that exist within story. And there are places that remain, even when the story is no longer told. The underworld belongs to the latter. It is not shaped by memory, nor sustained by belief. It does not depend on the telling of its name, nor on the fear or reverence of those who imagine it. It exists as it always has, beneath, beyond, and apart from the movement of all things that begin and end. The God who remains there does not seek understanding. He does not require recognition. He is not diminished by being forgotten, nor strengthened by being remembered. For he is not a figure shaped by thought, but a presence shaped by what does not change. In the world above, endings are often seen as moments, brief, defined, contained within time. They are marked, spoken of, and then passed beyond, as life continues its unfolding. But beneath that unfolding, beneath every beginning and every conclusion, there is something quieter. Something that does not pass. Something that does not belong to time at all. The underworld is not a destination in the way paths are understood. It is not reached through distance. It is not found through seeking. It is revealed when movement ceases, when becoming ends, when all that could change has already done so. The souls that remain there are not stories preserved. They are not echoes waiting to be heard. They are not fragments of a past that continues in another form. They are what remains when nothing more can be added. And in that state, they do not need to be remembered. They do not need to be understood. They simply are. The Queen, who moves between worlds, does not undo this truth. She does not soften it. She does not transform it into something that can be carried back into life. She exists as a quiet connection, a thread that binds what moves to what does not, without merging them into one. Through her, the living world feels the presence of stillness. Through her, the boundary is no longer absolute, but even in that connection, the underworld remains unchanged. It does not open, it does not yield, it does not become anything other than what it has always been. A place or something beyond place where all things are complete. To understand this is not to diminish life, nor is it to elevate death. It is to recognize that both exist within a larger stillness that does not belong to either. Life moves, death remains, and beneath both there is something that holds them without participating in their change. The ancient stories speak of the underworld in many ways as a realm of shadows, of judgment, of reward and punishment. They give it shape, give it voice, give it meaning within the language of the living. But beyond those stories, beyond the forms and names that have been given to it, there remains something quieter, something that does not need to be imagined. The idea of a final place, not as an ending to be feared or escaped, but as a condition that has always existed beneath all things. The God who never leaves does not wait for anything. He does not anticipate the arrival of souls, nor does he consider what has already come. He remains, because remaining is all that is required. And in that remaining, he reflects something that extends beyond myth. A truth that is not bound to a single story, nor to a single time. That what is complete does not need to continue. That what has ended does not need to begin again. That stillness is not emptiness, but fulfillment without movement. The world above will continue. It will rise and fall, begin and end, carry forward and recede. New lives will emerge, new stories will be told. And each of them will move, quietly, toward a place that does not move at all. The underworld does not call them, it does not draw them in, it does not claim them, and yet all things arrive, not because they are taken, but because they have reached their end. And when they do, the silence does not greet them, it does not receive them, it does not change in response to their arrival. It simply remains, as it always has, as it always will. The story ends, but the quiet does not. It does not conclude, it does not fade, it does not resolve into something else. It remains, beneath the telling, beneath the remembering, beneath the movement of all things. And in that remaining, there is no need for another word. Only silence. Unbroken, unending, complete.